Hello, welcome back to Board Game Bananas. Today we are talking Last Will, the game that will have you dreaming of the day that your long lost uncle dies and leaves you a massive fortune of £70. There's a lot to unpack today, so let's get straight into how to play. The objective of Last Will is very simple. Your goal is to lose all of your money as quickly as you can. And the first player to declare bankruptcy is the winner. In order to do that, you're going to be picking up some cards that allow you to spend this money, and you're also going to have some errand boys who can basically run around and help you spend it as quickly as you can. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's start by setting up. Setup for Last Will is reasonably straightforward. Each player takes a playing board in whichever colour they like, and you start with £70, at least when you're playing for the very first time. When you're more seasoned, you can take one of these cards which tells you how much money you can start with, and the amounts differ from 70 to 130. But for new players, 70 is considered plenty. You're then going to need these two boards, and depending on how many players you are, you're going to want them either this way up or the other way up. I've got it set up for a 2 to 3 player game, but if there are 4 or 5 of you playing, you basically get more options for your cards and also more options over here. Also set up the 4 main decks as shown. You'll also need to set aside this huge pile of money, as well as these cards here, which can be used to extend each player's player board. Also take the 3 different types of special cards. You'll notice some have got 1 crown on the back, some 2, some 3. Shuffle each of these separately and then pile them up so the 1s are on top of the 2s and the 2s are on top of the 3s, etc. You're also going to want to prepare this bag of other tokens, which is mainly full of little tokens in these colours denoting the 4 different types of companion, and then the house tokens, which will be used when you buy property. I'll get on to how those work in a little bit. And finally, hand each player 3 of the helper cards and 3 of the property cards. They will then look at their 6 cards and decide to keep 2 of them. But bear in mind, it doesn't have to be one of the helpers and one of the properties, it can be any 2 of the 6. Gameplay works across 5 different phases of play. There's setup, there's planning, there's errands, there's actions, and then it's the end of the round. Let's go through each of those in turn. During the setup phase, we're going to put 7 cards in these 7 positions, which players can then take at a later date. Which card it is that goes in these places is denoted by the symbol. So in these ones, for example, we have the symbol for the special cards, so we shall place one of those in each of these. In this square, and this square, it depends which round of the game we're on. The game is played over a total of 7 rounds. So in round 1 to 3 here, it's going to be another special card. In rounds 4 plus, it's going to be one of the wild companion cards. In this one, we have a wild companion card. That's what goes there. Here we have a helper, one of those. Here, rounds 1 to 4, we have a helper, which also goes there. And then in this one, in rounds 1 to 3, we have one of these property cards. During the planning phase, each player will take their token in their colour, and then one by one we shall place it on one of these hourglasses up here in order to decide which of these hourglasses we're choosing. These have different things going on them, so the top number here is basically a number of cards that you can pick up. I'll get back to those in a minute. These are the number of errand boys that you're going to have helping you this round. It will be either 2 or only 1. And then lastly, what we have here is the number of actions that you're going to get to spend that round. Again, I'll come on to how the actions work and why you might want more of them. The final thing that this decides is the order in which you're going to play. Whoever is furthest to the left on this board will be playing first for the remainder of the round, and then second, third, fourth, etc. Players will take it in turn to place their piece and then proceed clockwise. The exception to this is if you're playing 2-player. If I was playing 2-player, I would have another of these pieces in a different colour from my own. I'd use one from a player that isn't playing. So let's say I'm playing as yellow and I'm playing against the red player. What we would do then, if I was going first, is I would take the blue one, so not my yellow one, and I would place it on an hourglass that I want to block the red player from having. Then it's the red player's turn. They would take their green one and block it from something that I want to have. Then they would place their red one on which one that they would like, and finally I would choose between these three. And then because red is further to the left than yellow, red would go first for the remainder of this round. Immediately after placing the piece, I would then take the number of cards indicated in the hourglass, in this case 2. I would then take either from the properties, the helpers, the events, or the companions. What's important to know, if I'm taking 2, for example, I could take 2 from any one pile. I don't have to mix it up. However, what I'm not allowed to do is take one, look at it, and decide what I want to do from there. I basically have to be taking 2 blind like this. And then we get on to the errand phase. Again, the order of this will depend on which order you've placed your pieces in up here. And you get the number of errand tokens as depicted by your hourglass, so in this case I would have 2. You can use your errands to do different things. You could, for example, place a token here, which would mean that you can adjust the value of the green farms or the orange, pink or yellow properties. And you might do that because if I'm trying to buy an orange property, I want it to be as expensive as possible. But if I'm trying to sell a pink one, I want it to be as cheap as possible so that I lose as much money as I possibly can. That's one place you could put an errand boy. You could also put one over here, which simply means that you spend £2 to go to the opera. You could place one here, which means that I get to pick another card. I could also place an errand token here, next to this symbol, which basically means that I can take my player board and I can take one of these extra spaces and I can use that basically to extend my player board. And besides that, there are these places here where you can also put your errand boy token. If you place it in one of these down here, you basically get the card directly below it. And then I can take that and use it during my turn. You'll notice at the top here that there are only 2 of these spaces, and yet there are 3 cards. The way that works is the first player to put an errand boy token in there can take any one of these 3 cards, and then another player, or indeed the same player in their next turn, can put one there, take another one of these cards. This card in the middle is then impossible for anybody to take. And then we're on to the action phase, which is where you're going to spend the majority of your money. Basically, during the action phase, you're going to be playing your cards and activating some of your cards, which again is going to cost you money. You get the number of action points that's denoted down here in your hourglass. In this case, I would have 3. So take a grey token, put it on the 3 on your player board, and then each time you use an action, just move it down, just so you remember how many you've got. I'll go through the cards in a little bit, just so it's clear how the actions actually work. And when everyone's done with their actions, it's time for the end of round phase. There's a little round counter up here, which you move down, and then 7 is going to be the final round. Any cards that players have activated during this turn get put back up so that they're ready to be used again next turn. Also, the cards in your hand, you have to discard and keep a maximum of 2 for the start of the next round. And that fundamentally is how the gameplay works in each of the 5 different phases. But the thing is, so far I haven't actually explained the bit that I personally found most difficult to learn when I was learning this game for the first time. And that is how these cards actually work. There are basically 4 different types. There are companions, there are white border cards, there are black border cards, and there are properties. Let's go through each of them in turn. Let's start with the properties. There are fundamentally 2 different types of properties. There are mansions and there are farms. Farms cost you the amount of money that it says here, plus or minus whatever, in this case the green symbol, is doing on the property market. You might have had an errand boy go and adjust the prices for you. But a farm will cost you this amount of money. When you sell it, it will still cost you that amount of money. However, you can pay certain amounts of money to upkeep the farm and basically keep it very nice. In this case, paying 1 gold and also using an action would upkeep the farm. If you have some companions, if you have a dog and if you have a horse, it will cost you different amount of actions to do that, but it would also cost you more money to upkeep. Mansions, on the other hand, these depreciate in value if you're lucky. So you buy it for the amount of money in the top corner, and then each turn this is going to depreciate in value as the mansion falls to ruins. However, you could pay the upkeep to stop it from depreciating. So in this case, if you buy it for 20, it's then worth 20. Next turn, you can either pay the upkeep, pay the 4 gold and 1 action in order to keep it at 20, or it's going to automatically fall down to 19. Then when you eventually have to sell it, it would be for the 19 in this case, or 17 or 13, plus or minus whatever the sort of pink properties are doing in the property market. Important to notice about properties is that you cannot declare bankruptcy whilst you are owning a property, so you have to sell either the mansion or the farm before you're able to win the game. And then there are the event cards, which you'll recognise by the white borders around the edges. These are basically one-off events that you play one time, you use once, and then the card gets discarded. These can come in different shapes and sizes though, so in this case we have a soiree. This will cost you 2 gold and an action, and quite simply you pay those things, you get rid of the card, the job's a good one. But then there are other things like the boat trip. So if you go on a boat trip, it will cost you £2 or 2 gold, as well as 2 actions. However, in order to properly spend your money as quickly as you can bring some companions with you. If you have a companion card for a lady friend or a horse or a dog, you can bring them with you and then pay a little bit extra. So if you're bringing your horse and your dog, that's the 2 for you to go, plus the 3, plus the 2, then suddenly you'd be playing this card and spending £7. And then there are the cards with these black borders, the black border cards. These get played onto your playing board. It always costs you 1 action point to put a card down on the player board, even before you even actually use it. Then, once it's down, it could be the same. You could do this immediately after you put it down, but once it's down, you can choose to activate it by sliding it down like that. That would, in this case, cost you 4 gold and 1 action, so the price is in the top corner of the card. But also there are some of these that can cost you a little bit more as well. So this dinner reservation, if you choose to go on your own, it will cost you 1 action. However, if you ever play a chef companion card, you can put one of these white chef tokens down on the card, and that basically means that every time you go for this dinner reservation, you take your own personal chef with you, and then instead of costing you 1, it'll cost you 2. You'll also notice in this case, it costs you another action just to put your chef token down like that. And lastly, there are the companion cards, which have the blue slate around the edge. There is the chef, the dog, the guest. I should have called it a guest earlier, not a lady friend. The horse, and then of course the wildcard token. The way these work can be in slightly different ways. So I've already mentioned, for example, for the black bordered cards, that you can put down the companion that has the matching token, and then you can place that there, and then that chef is considered permanently attached to that reservation. But also, if you have a white border card, you could play a companion again with the matching token. So in this case, see if I can get my cards correct. In this case, it is a horse because the yellow token here matches the yellow token there. and you basically play those in one go and then they are discarded. And fundamentally, that is how you play Last Will. Again, the objective is to spend all of your money as quickly as you can. When one player declares bankruptcy, then that triggers the end of the round, so you finish off the round that you're in, and if multiple players go bankrupt in the same round, then it is whoever accumulates the most debt during the game. But yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think about this game. I have a review video coming next week, so do subscribe so you don't miss that one. And in the meantime, enjoy playing Last Will. I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, goodbye, and don't forget to spend all your money. Goodbye.